election. Nobody asked him. He couldn't get the one patronage job he really wanted from the new administration, from the Zachary Taylor administration. And he was pretty much out of it. Then he runs again for Senate and loses again. So Lincoln, there is no Lincoln if he doesn't really, if there is no Republican Party founded. So he's the great exception, but he was a very successful party builder, and that's what makes it possible for him to get elected, along, of course, with the tremendous split in 1860. And you got 4 candidates running, so it makes it possible for him to win. I know a little bit about this also because of where I grew up in Cook County, and I know a lot about the history of the insurgent movements within the Democratic Party, locally and also nationally. And I tell you, it's really hard to run against the regular party. Even Obama, I mean, you could, in Obama's favor, you could say, look, he took on the incumbent power that was Hillary Clinton and the Clintons, although they're not finished, and he beat them. But it took $150 million, $200 million, and the support of the Illinois Democratic Organization. He couldn't have done it without regular party support from Illinois and the money. He just couldn't have done it. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Do you think grassroots aspirations to challenge and reform and this system are a lost cause, or what routes do you see for optimism to challenge the hegemony of the entrenched power and money?
So glad you asked me that question, because I deliberately I put in a chapter intended to give you hope. My main interest is in informing and in, I hope, outraging you. But I also want to give you some examples, some concrete examples of people who were able to beat the system, or at least partially beat the system. And my happy chapter is the one on Portsmouth, Rhode Island, where a woman named Connie Harding, and this is coming out, because I wanted to, on behalf of my French publisher, I reread de Tocqueville entirely. I read the whole thing in French, so I didn't miss anything. And because I wanted to see how much of what Tocqueville said was right and how much I thought was wrong. By the way, the biggest thing Tocqueville got wrong is class mobility. He believed that every pauper could become a millionaire, and most millionaires came from nowhere. Absolutely false in the 19th century. As false then as it is today. But Connie Harding is living in this nice house with a big empty lot across from her in Portsmouth. And if you've ever been to Aquidneck Island, it's Newport on the southern edge with the huge mansions. Middletown in the middle, which is a nightmare of urban strip malls, of suburban strip malls, completely unplanned development. And Portsmouth on the northern third, which is still pretty rural. A lot of farms, some gentleman farms, but some real farms, but really still an intact and lovely community. She gets the news one day from a friend that they're going to build a big box Target right across the street in the empty lot. She's been afraid this is going to happen for a long time, but she's not prepared for it. She's busy. She's got 4 kids. She's got a job. Her husband's got a full-time job. Who's got time for politics? Plus, she's got to deal with the fact that it's literally a not in my front yard issue. She's instantly going to be accused of a special interest campaign that's only about keeping the target from coming in across the street from her house. But she overcomes these fears and difficulties. She starts calling her neighbors. Turns out everybody's up in arms about it. And she organizes a campaign. They start a group called Preserve Portsmouth. Everybody tells her she can't win because the guy, Jack Egan, the guy who owns the land, he's got all the politicians in his pocket, and and everybody's pro-development on the board, or most people are pro-development on the town council. Forget it, Connie. If you want to try, go ahead, but it's very unlikely. Well, she organizes the whole town. and they take it to the town council. They hire a lawyer from off Aquidneck Island, because everybody on Aquidneck, all the lawyers on Aquidneck Island are owned by the developers. They can't work for an opposition group because they'll never get any business from the developers again. Gets a guy from off the island. He knows exactly what to do, but she does all the heavy lifting in terms of organizing with her friends. They get a computer list together. They start all showing up en masse at the planning committee meetings. They all come en masse to the town council meetings, and you can see things start to change. You feel the tenor changing. Interestingly, the newspapers on Aquidneck Island and in the area start doing their job, which is absolutely essential to a democracy. You got a weekly paper, you got the Providence Journal, you got the Newport Daily News. They all start doing a little bit of reporting because Connie Harding's organization is making noise, and it looks like a story. Somebody finds out that the local weekly figures out that there isn't really as much tax money to be had from this big box store as the propagandists are saying, and this is a big story, and so on and so forth. Anyway, make a long story short, she wins up to a point. I leave it a little bit ambiguous at the end because it's unclear whether Jack Egan at this very moment is negotiating with Walmart to put in what they call a Walmart country store. I think there's now this, because of opposition in various cities and towns to Walmart, they figured out how to package it differently at under 50,000 or under 40,000 square feet. But for now, she's won, and everybody in Portsmouth feels great about themselves. They feel empowered. I mean, I went to their meetings. I went up to the last meeting where they won more decisively and extended the moratorium on the big box development. It was an amazing thing to see what these people did and how excited they got and how angry the powers that be in town became as the opposition mounted. And the key moment, I hate to give this away, but I want to be entertaining. In the book, I think in terms of an optimistic scenario is when the local paper, the Seconic Times, interviews, or maybe it's the Providence Journal, interviews the lawyer for Jack Egan after the first moratorium has been passed. And I'm telling you, the town council has been packed. There's people with their heads, you think people are apathetic, not interested in politics. When they get something and they feel like they've got some power, they get very excited. There's hundreds of people outside and inside the room, packed to overflowing. And Bob Silva, the lawyer for Egan, doesn't even show up. He doesn't want to show his face because he's a little bit scared. The next day, he's quoted, or 2 days later, he's quoted in the paper saying, this was a phony victory. It was mob rule. So when he said it was mob rule that won the day, even the middle sort of nervous Nelly councilman backed off and said, hey, he can't say that. This is democracy. And that's when she knew she had it won, when Silva made this terrible mistake, called it triumph of mob rule.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Sort of in response to that question and in response to what you are, I think it's possible that that kind of thing may actually happen more than we think, and that what may look like a constant fixed victory by the incumbents may sometimes be the result of election fraud, which I guess he didn't talk about.
No, I talk about election fraud in the book a little bit, but I'm more interested in the question. I thought what you might get to was, should Connie Harding run for office? That's the question. And I asked her, would you consider running for office after having won this great victory? And she says, oh, I don't know. A lot of people said, yeah, I've got a talent for it, and yes, I should, and so on and so forth. I don't know if I could do it, blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure that that's the answer. I don't think you necessarily want Connie Harding